Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Hart here, back with another video for Saturday night on DraftKings. Going to be breaking down this four-game NBA slate, talking through who I like, who I don't like, kind of going over some early look core plays as always. The injury news does change that and affects the entire slate, so always stay updated with that right up until lock and even throughout the slate. Late swap is a great tool that not many people use. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let's get right into this four-game slate. Jumping into the odds, I always like to take a look at the odds just to see kind of what games are better to target than others. Obviously, there's going to be good plays most of the time from every single team, but you also kind of want to target the high scoring games because obviously that means more chance for more fantasy points for guys across the board. So, as we can see here, Boston versus the Pacers, 7-point spread. So, it's getting up there to a little bit of blowout risk, but, Indiana has been able to score 249 game total. So, that's absolutely monster on a four-game slate here. Knicks, Wizards, 9-point spread. So obviously a little bit more blowout risk there, 239. Obviously the Wizards have been terrible and a team we always want to target. Same thing with the Pacers. Always want to target them because they could score a lot, but they also give up a lot. Then moving on down here to the Jazz and 76ers, 11-point spread. Now the 76ers did just rule out, I think it was Tobias Harris as well as Melton. So they are a little bit shorthanded. Obviously they have Embiid. He alone can beat them by like 50. But still, 11-point spread, 238. I think this is a sneaky one to target, like targeting this game. And then the Bucks versus Rockets, 6.5-point spread, 237.5 games total. So as you can see, pretty good game totals all across the board on this four-game slate. So jumping into this first game here, the Knicks versus Washington. For the Knicks side, as we know, Randle and Brunson are going to lead this team in terms of usage. That's where the ball is going to go to. That's where it's going to run through. Randle, I'd say, is a little bit of the safer play just because of that upside with the rebounds and assists. And if he shoots, if he doesn't hit a shot, he's still going to continue shooting. That's a good thing with Randle. Like, he won't stop. He'll go 4 of 20. He does not care. He has no shame. So I think he's a pretty strong option there. Same thing with Jalen Brunson. He's been better when it comes to the peripheral stats recently. So it's his floor has pretty much been 40, and he's been going off a little bit more. He's been really good. So yeah, I don't mind getting to either one of them. Not my favorite plays. But it is Washington. So you like targeting Washington. OG, people have been all over the OG train. Like, I get it. Like, he's on the Knicks. He'll assume more offensive ability than he probably did in Toronto, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, I think a lot of people thought he was going to come in and kind of maybe take over that, second role offensively. It's like, no, you got Randle and Brunson. They're 1 and 2, however you want to rank them, and OG is going to be the third. It's kind of the same situation as it was in Toronto. You have Pascal and Scotty, 1 and 2. OG kind of was like not even the third. You still had like Schroeder there. You also had Gary Trent. You had all these other guys where it's like OG kind of didn't really have a defined offensive role. Same thing here. He's going to be the third guy, so it's a little bit more defined, but still, it's one of those things. It's not he's going to be shooting 15, 20 times a game. But it's going to be sporadic. The only good thing we can kind of hope for is his minutes. Like, he's going to be playing probably close to 38 minutes a game if he stays out of foul trouble. So it's like he does have some solid upside at 6.5K, but I think a lot of people, he was massive chalk the past few nights, think he was going to get this huge expanded offensive role. I don't see it. I just don't see him cutting into, Brunson or Randall's role. It's not going to happen. But overall, DFS wise, I think it's a fine play just because the minutes are massive there at 6,500. Hartenstein's been very good recently. The minutes have also been great on him as well. So he's looking probably like the best point per dollar play for me personally at 5.8K. So I'll throw him in like the player pool of guys I do have some good interest in. DiVincenzo, he's been seeing some decent minutes, kind of all over the place. Obviously, the last game there versus Philly, massive blowout. So hitting into the mid-20s, but he should see mid-20s, and he's been hitting the shots recently. So I think he's a fine play at 5.4K. Same thing with Josh Hart. He's all the way down to 4.5. As you can see, look at the minutes recently. 31, 38, 29, 25, 30. He has not been as productive as he's usually been this season as he was in seasons past, but still 4.5K for a guy who's going to be seeing mid-20s minutes. He's always a really good rebounder. If he can hit a few shots, get a couple steals, 4.5K for him in this matchup here. It's really hard not to get to him. He's going to be massive chalk, but for good reason. Moving on to Precious here off the bench. Saw 13 minutes in a blowout. You would have hoped he would have saw more, but still, we know Coach Thibodeau likes to ride the starters like into the ground. So even with blowouts, he still didn't really throw the bench guys in there. Sims is back as well. He'll maybe see a few, but as you can see, there's not much to like here in terms of value. McBride, sure, you can take a shot on him. He saw a little bit more because of that blowout, the flat minimum price tag. That's really it. There's not a ton to like here. Fournier, he hasn't really seen anything recently. So, yeah, it's really just kind of the main starters, and that's it. As well as, obviously, Josh Hart off the bench. Moving on to Washington here. Washington side, as I always say, if this game's going to stay close, it's going to be because of Kyle Kuzma. We know the upside with him, so he's always a very solid contrarian option there at that price tag. Denny, I think I do have some interest in him. One of those guys who should play, mid 20s, possibly into 30s minutes. He does have upside if he can hit his shots. And does have a little bit of double upside as well. I think he's a fine GPP option. Gafford, same thing. 6,000 for him is actually a decent price tag. The mints are all over the board, but if he can stay out of foul trouble, he does have some decent upside. Tyus Jones, as I always say, his minutes are all over the place. His production's all over the place. 5,800, I think he's a fine play. Jordan Poole has been one of the worst, if not the worst, NBA player in the season so far in terms of plus minus. I think he's a fine GPP play. We know he can have huge upside. It's just he's been god awful. So one of those GPP plays you take a shot on. Most of the time he's going to burn you, but if you want to get different, take down this 50K. He could be one of those main guys. That's really it. They'll run out some Kispert there, 15 to 20 minutes. Same thing with Gallo. It's just, if you're looking for value, sure, you can land on it. Don't love it. Delon Wright's seen minutes as well. So some cheap value there, but nothing too crazy. Moving on to Boston here versus Indiana. Boston, we know all the production is going to be coming from the starting five. Not really much to look at in terms of the value, like the guys off the bench, like a Pritchard, 4.3K. Unless you expect this game to blow out, he should see around 15 to 20 minutes. Doesn't really make him in play. Same thing with Cornette and Hauser. They're just kind of there. Cornette will see about 10 minutes. Hauser will see probably 15 to 20. If you wanted to get really different, sure, you can go to them, but I don't think there's a need. Horford, 6,500, just a little bit too expensive for me. He should be seen around 20 minutes with a full healthy team now. So we know the production is going to be coming from Tatum, Porzingis, Brown, White, and Holiday. I always think Tatum's the best just because the offense runs through him. Fantastic matchup here. So I think he's one of the best spin-ups on the board. Kind of have a limited ceiling compared to last few just because of all the offense ability with guys like Porzingis there, who I think is a strong GPP option. That price tag should keep people away, but we know the upside of him is massive. Brown's price is sneaking down a little bit still. I think it's a fine GPP option. I'd rather get to Porzingis. Derek White's been super, super strong recently. He's more of a stay away from me at that price tag. And then Drew Holiday, I think, is always in play. But once again, he's kind of been taking the backseat in terms of offense, kind of focusing more on defense on this team. So I think Tatum and Porzingis are the best. Brown's a fine GPP option. And that's really it. Moving on to Indiana here. For the Indiana side, obviously Halliburton, 9.9K feels criminal to get to him. I mean, the upside there is massive. As we see it all season, 9.9K is just way too cheap for him. Didn't shoot the ball a ton. Still won by 40 almost. Only shot 6 times, 4-6, 25 minutes, went for 54.5, a double there. I mean, he's always going to be massively high owned just because of the ceiling, and he's too cheap. So annoying stuff there. But yeah, Turner at 6.6K. His price is dropping. We know the upside there with him. He is a good amount of interest for me. Mathurin. Now we get into the wings here where it's just a crapshoot, right? Like Mathurin, Naismith, Buddy Hield. Bruce Brown is out, so that does help kind of know where we're going to go a little bit. But Nembhard's questionable, as well as Isaiah Jackson, who wasn't seen a ton of minutes, but kind of affects the big rotation off the bench. Obi Toppin is down there, so it's like I have interest in some of these guys, but I think we expect the starting lineup of Halliburton, Turner. I would assume they throw in Naismith if he's good to go. He'll probably start just because of his defensive ability. Solid defender, nothing too crazy there, but he can shoot the ball as well. So I think he's an okay play. I don't like the price tag at all on him, but he should see solid minutes. I think Buddy Hield is probably my favorite there. Minutes have gone down recently, but obviously the blowout there, a little bit of blowout there versus Milwaukee, but they're going to need his scoring, 5.3K. So I think he's probably the most interesting to me. Nembhard should probably start if he's good to go, as he was those previous games, which I think he makes him a solid play at 5.1. Smith is there, 5,000. Minutes have not been great on him. I think the most interesting would probably be TJ McConnell for me. Like if Nembhard is still out, if they're missing, Naismith might be out. If they're missing guards, I think TJ McConnell would probably be my favorite play off the bench there, as well as Buddy Hield. So that's kind of how I'm thinking with Indiana. Like the two guys at the top, and then like Buddy Hield and possibly TJ McConnell. Moving on to Utah here. Utah side, I think Lauri Markkanen is still way too cheap here. We know the ceiling with him is massive. Been a little bit disappointing recently, as you can see, 24, 29, 43, 31. But as we saw at the beginning of the season, he's a guy who can easily go for 50 plus. Um, it's here and there. It's not consistent, but we know he has that upside. So I think he's always a very strong GPP option. Same thing with Jordan Clarkson. Minutes have kind of been all over the board, but we know he's upside if he can get hot from the floor. So a solid GPP option. Sexton, seen about 20-ish minutes, nothing too crazy there. Kessler's always a fine GPP option. You'd assume they're going to need his size to guard Embiid. Always has that huge upside with the blocks. But once again, minutes are just all over the board with this team. They're kind of playing everyone a ton of different minutes. They're all playing around 15 to 20 minutes, as you guys can see. So it's hard to really like anyone besides Laurie at the top and maybe Clarkson, just because the minutes are so sporadic across the board where not one person really sticks out. John Collins, I think, is interesting, 4.8. Kelly is there. It's just like, yeah, you don't feel great landing any of these guys. I don't think there's a need to. I think there's better options like the Boston guys, the Knicks guys, possibly even the Washington guys are kind of the same plays as the Utah, backups, or not backups, but those wings, those forwards. Just a lot of question marks in that range, that wing forward range of like 5.5K to like 4.3K. Moving on to Philadelphia here, as we can see, Harris, Mountain are out. So we'll get the starting lineup of Embiid, Maxey, Oubre, and I would assume Batum, and then they're probably going to throw in either, Morris, Covington, or House. So we could get some value here for Philly, which is nice. But Embiid looks great. Absolutely love Maxey at 8.3K. I think that's the lock of the day. The lowest price on Maxey all year. As we can see here, started out 7.5K, then absolutely skyrocketed, and he's coming back down to earth a little bit there, but still same thing. Nothing's really changed, especially with Tobias Harris being out. So that's more usage to go around. So absolutely love Maxey, absolutely love Embiid. Really like Oubre there. He should play some pretty solid minutes. 5.9K is a great price tag on him. You should look to shoot the ball more. So throw him in that interesting player pool, and then we'll see guys like, I think Batum's fine play. He should still see about 20-ish minutes. Nothing too crazy. Beverly should see a little bit of a bump in minutes, probably 20 more. So see about 15 to 20. I think it's a fine value, actually. Not going to do anything too crazy because obviously the offense is just going to run through Maxey and Embiid and then Oubre. So nothing too crazy happens offensively for those kind of value guys, but they should see decent minutes and they're pretty cheap. So if we can hit a home run with one of the guys, a guy like Daniel House, maybe he gets 15 to 20 fantasy points. That could really help out if you're looking for cheap value. And then moving on to Milwaukee here versus Houston. Milwaukee side, we obviously know that with this team, offensive production should be coming from the main three guys here, Giannis, Dame, and Middleton. I think price tag wise, I know obviously Giannis is always fine to get to, but I really prefer getting to Lillard or Middleton. Middleton obviously screwed a lot of us. He's very low ownership on that 2-game slates there. I think he's only like 15% owned, absolutely smashing there. And they did not play him in there in the second half. Frustrating stuff, very limited minutes wise, because it was a back-to-back. They wanted him to be healthy. So they didn't explain that at all. They didn't say there was a possibility, just said they're going to monitor his minutes. And then they just didn't play him in the second half. So, of course, I played him 15% owned, absolutely smashing, got absolutely screwed. But he should be good to go here with 2 days rest. Dame and Lillard, yeah, they obviously look fantastic here. I think Dame is a nice pivot play off of like a should be super chalky Halliburton. I mean, we know the upside is pretty similar. It doesn't have that double upside. He can get you there sometimes, but it's more so the scoring ability. Like he easily go for 30, 40 plus real life points, even playing alongside these guys. And then Middleton's been super productive recently since his minutes have been going into the low 30s. So I have a good amount of interest in both of them. Brook Lopez is always a fine GPP option. Nothing too crazy there for me. He's there. Don't like getting to him in a fully healthy team. Bobby Portis is too priced up for me. Beasley's playing huge minutes, but 5.2K, you're not getting him a discount. Same thing with Connaughton. Should see anywhere from 14 to 20-ish minutes. He saw 28 just because of Middleton being ruled out in that second half. For Houston here, I think Sengun's going to be a very under the radar play, but he has massive upside as you can see here. So I think he's a very sneaky and solid play for tonight. Van Fleet is fine. Should play huge minutes, has huge upside if he can hit a shot. Sometimes he's aggressive, sometimes he's not. So makes him a little bit of a riskier play there at 8.2K. Green, Smith. I prefer getting to Smith. He should see more minutes. He should be a little bit more aggressively with no Eason or possibly no Brooks. But if one or two of those guys are back, there's really no interest in this team for me besides the two guys at the top. It's really just the offense runs through both of them. And then the shots get just sprinkled throughout, Jalen Green, Smith a little bit, Eason a little bit, Brooks a little bit. I think Eason's an interesting play. There's no minutes limit. He should see anywhere from mid-20s to possibly even 30 minutes if there's some foul trouble with the bigs. As you can see, he's very productive as well. So he's probably the most interesting to me if he does play. Otherwise, it's just sticking with the main two guys there. So that's the breakdown. Hope you guys like it. Hit that like button and subscribe. And I will have my updated core plays right before lock on my Patreon link down below.